If you've been on a 125 for any length of time, eventually you're going to start thinking about upgrading to a bigger bike. But it can be a little bit difficult to know when you're actually ready to upgrade. And I'm going to say straight away, I can't give you a definitive answer. I can't say 6 months or 1 year or 10,000 miles or anything like that, because it just depends so heavily on the rider. What I can do is look back at some footage from myself when I was on my 125 and give you guys kind of a framework for how to decide when you're ready for an upgrade. So in this clip I was on my CBF 125, I've been riding for about 8 months and I'd honestly only covered about 2,000 miles. I didn't ride my 125 half as much as I remember myself. So when you're thinking about upgrading from your 125, the first thing to ask yourself is why? And I want more power is not going to be a good enough reason, because trust me, everyone wants more power when they're on a 125. But you'll get a bigger bike, it will blow your mind for a week or two, and then you'll get used to that and then you'll want more power again. So I want to go a little bit faster is not really a good enough reason. Think about what a bigger bike will unlock for you. So for me, I wanted to do IAM training and that involves going on motorways, so I couldn't do that when I was on a CBT, and even if I had a full license, I couldn't really do that on a 125 sensibly. So it might be that going for your full license, getting a bigger bike will allow you to take more training and make you a better rider. That was definitely a big part of my motorcycling journey. It might be that you want to go on long tours and your bike's not really suitable. Or it might be that you want to start carrying a pillion and you don't want to be doing that on your 125. So really thinking about what it is you want from a bigger bike will help you decide if you're ready for it. Especially when you live in the city, why not stay on a smaller, lighter and cheaper bike like a 125? Well, it might be that it doesn't do everything you want it to do, and that might be a good enough reason to upgrade. The second thing to think about is whether your skills are ready for you to upgrade to a bigger and heavier bike. I've met many people who never dropped their 125 and then they got a bigger bike and they dropped it loads of times, and it's because their technique was not good, it was sloppy. Especially as a short rider like me, I used to put both my feet down on a 125, and because the bike was so light, I could pretty much just hold it up with my arms. But that won't fly when you get even a bike that's a little bit heavier. You need to be really skilled and really deliberate with where you choose to place the bike. And this is true for things like parking the bike as well. If you've got a 200 kilo bike, you don't want to be lugging that in and out of an awkward parking space. You need to think about these things a little bit more. So if you can do that on your 125 and you've been practicing it, you might be ready for an upgrade. But if you look at yourself and you're honest and you say, I'm not good at U-turns, I'm not good at putting one foot down when I come to a stop, you might just not be ready for a bigger bike yet, and that's fine. The third thing to think about is whether you can afford it. A big reason I stayed on a 125 for a year is because as a young rider in a big city, my insurance is really expensive, so I needed that 1 year's no claims to be able to even afford insurance on a bigger bike. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't have upgraded before the 1 year mark because I really needed that 1 year's no claims. Some other things to think about other than insurance, which is going to be a lot more expensive, is things like if you've got a loan on your 125 when you sell it, is that loan going to be paid off, or are you going to have to make up the extra to clear the rest of the balance? Things like road tax will also be more expensive, maintenance will also be more expensive. It's great if you can afford all of this, but it's really important to think about before you make the jump. You need to be honest about what kind of riding you've done too. Like I said, I've been riding for 8 months at this point and I thought I was an awesome rider. But looking back at this video, I was cornering so slowly. I think I went on the wrong side of the road at one point because I just didn't understand the lane markings. I was a terrible rider. And a big part of that is I didn't have any formal training. I did a CBT on a geared bike 8 months prior, and this is the part where I got on the wrong side of the road because I had no idea what I was doing. I did my CBT on a geared bike and I really struggled with it and I kept dropping it, so eventually I finished it on a 50cc scooter. So not only did I have to learn how to ride a geared bike on my own, but I basically had no on-the-road training. It was terrible. And in my case, I don't think staying on a 125 would have actually helped me get better. What I really needed is for an instructor to watch me in real life and give me some tips on how I can ride better. And that's a big part of getting a bigger bike, is that you do more in-depth training when you do your mod 1 and your mod 2, and you do actually become a better rider than just riding around on a CBT. But if you were anything like me and you've only ridden around for maybe 1,000 or 2,000 miles and you haven't done any commuting or any rush hour stuff or anything kind of difficult, you might just not be ready to upgrade yet. The best thing to do is see what kind of training you can take when you're on your 125. For example, I did a bike safe course, which was really helpful. I think TFL have something called a skills course or a skills day or something. If you can take advantage of all of this training, then it will help you get better and help you prepare yourself for a bigger bike. But I'll finish the video by saying when I first did my CBT and I first got a bike, I actually planned on keeping it for 2 years and then upgrading. Looking back in hindsight, this really wouldn't have helped my riding. I think at the end of the 1 year when I was transitioning to the bigger bike, my riding actually started to go backwards a little bit because the 125 is just really forgiving. You can throw it around, you can drop it and pick it up 100 times, you can dump the clutch at every traffic lights, but that doesn't translate to a bigger bike. So I don't actually think it's a good idea to stay on the 125 forever and ever. Just enough for you to get some confidence and for you to learn a bit about how the roads work and set yourself up for success when you go and get a bigger bike. If it was one of my friends and they were asking me how long they should keep a 125 for, I'd probably say 6 months or a year, just get used to the bike a little bit, get used to riding on the roads. But there really isn't a definitive answer I can give you without actually watching you ride. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide when you're ready for an upgrade. Hopefully some of the things I gave you to think about will help you decide when you're ready to go for a bigger bike, and I really would encourage it, and I really would encourage taking some more training as soon as you're able to. And whether you decide to stay on your 125 for a little bit longer, or you decide to go for a bigger bike, make sure you ride safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.